Hey guys, welcome back to Wix Fix. I hope you're having a fantastic day. In today's video, we are going to be learning about different units of measurements inside of Editor X. So if we take a look at the classic editor and we resize the screen, we're going to see that nothing is shrinking down. And the main reason for that is everything in the classic editor is set to pixels. So if we click this element right here and we look at the size, we're going to see it says px next to it, which stands for pixels. And of course, if we, change the size of this, you're going to see the width and the height change. Also, the X and Y position of this element, when we change it, that's also set to a pixel grid. So if we move this, button all the way to the top and left of this guideline, we're going to see the position is set to 0, 0. If we move it all the way to the right, you're going to see that the Y value is 0, but the X value is 840. If we bring it all the way down to where it was, just like that, this is the new X and Y value. And I know pixels are kind of hard to see, so I just took a screenshot of this page. And if we were to zoom in really far, you'll see all of these blocks, which basically represents a single pixel. And as you can see, this is kind of like a millimeter or an inch or something. It's a base unit of measurement, and there's no way to resize this base unit of measurement. Which brings us to Editor X. If we select this container and we open up the inspector panel, we can see that the width of this container is set to 34%. If we click this little percent icon, we can actually see the other choices that we have. We have percentage, we have pixels, and we have viewport height and viewport width. And before I show you examples of these, I kind of want to tell you what they are and how they work. So I know we basically covered pixels already, but pixels are basically a digital base unit of measurement. They use pixels to, measure screen sizes for TVs, monitors, laptops, phones, everything. And designers use pixels to design stuff for those screens. But unfortunately, pixels are not responsive. And for a lot of web design, we do need something that is responsive. And that's where percentages come in. Percentages are, define a size of something that is relative to its parent object. For example, if we look over here to the right, let's say this container is the parent object, and then this container inside of it is the child. If we set this to 60%, it's only going to be 60% of its parent. So as you can see, this one is only 60% width of this parent object. The next unit of measurement is viewport width. Now this is where things kind of get a little tricky and complicated to explain. It's kind of similar to percentages, except it is not the percentage of the website, but it's actually the percentage of the screen size that your user is viewing it on. So for example, let's say we have a child element that we want to be like 90% of the width of the website. If your user has a larger screen than you designed it on, and you have vertical width set up, then it's going to be set to 90% of that vertical width if they are on a larger screen. In other words, if your user has a larger or a smaller screen than what you designed the website on, then if you set a vertical width, it's always going to be that vertical width. And also I have this example right here, which also shows that maybe this black container is the website or a parent element, and this container inside is the child element, but obviously it is set to 120% of your viewer's device. So it obviously can go past its parent element, unlike percentages. And that kind of brings us to our last element, which is viewport height. Viewport height is basically the same thing as width, but just in height. So if you have a hero section that is pretty long, but you want to make sure that no matter what screen size your users are on, that it takes up the entire screen, you can use viewport height. For example, let's say this black box right here is the website. And then right here is your element that you want to be 100% of the viewport height. But let's say your user has a larger desktop and the height for that desktop is something like that. Well, if you set the viewport height for that website to be 100%, it's going to take up the full height of the screen without you having to manually do it for them. I hope my explanations made a little bit of sense, but if they didn't, here are some examples for you. So here we have a stack with a heading, a paragraph, and a button. And if we click this paragraph and we look at the width, it is set to 60% width. However, if we set this to 100, you're going to see it's going to completely take up the width of this stack element. However, let's just do something crazy like 100 VW. Now you're going to see it completely bypass the parent element or the stack and is going way beyond even the website. And you might be wondering, where is this, size coming from? If we look at the width of our website or our view of the website, you're going to see it's 1936. So if we click this paragraph, if we switch the viewport width to pixels, you're going to see the width is 1936, just like the width of the website. So if we switch it back to the viewport width and we shrink it down, now our website width is 1206. And so if we switch this paragraph back to pixels, we're going to see the width is 1206. For this example, if we click this section, we're going to see that the minimum height for this section is set to 100 VW. So if we look at the width of our website, it is set to 1936. So if we come over to the minimum height and we switch this to pixels, we're going to see the height of this website is actually the same as the width of the website. So it's 1936. So we're going to see that this section is actually just a giant square. We'll switch it back to viewport width. And now let's look at this container. This container is set to 20% width and 20% height. So this means that it is taking up 20% width of this section and 20% height of this section as well. But let's go ahead and switch this to 20% vertical width. You're going to see nothing has changed, and that's because the width of this section and the viewport width is exactly the same. However, if we switch this minimum height to 20 VH, we're going to see that is basically half the size. And the reason for this is because right here we have a viewport. Our viewport is this screen. It doesn't include what's down here. It only includes our window of visibility. It's taking up 20% in height of our visibility of the screen, not the entire website. And that's basically the difference between, the viewports and percentage. The next thing I want to show you is, let's say we want to have, this container line up with our logo. If we look at our logo, it has 60 pixels of margin on the left. If we look at our container, it has 3.1% of margin on the left. So if we resize our website, we're going to see that the logo and this container box are no longer in line with one another. So to fix this, you can either click the container and add 60 pixels of margin and they will be together, or you could also add 3.1% margins to the left of the logo, and now they will also always be in line with one another. And the last thing I want to show you before I wrap up this tutorial is how you can use these responsive units of measurements with pixels to create really cool websites. For example, if we look at this container, it has a width of 34%. And if we resize the website all the way down to mobile, we're going to see that this 34% is really tiny. Or maybe even just on desktop. Maybe you didn't want it to go this small on desktop. So to fix that, let's go over to the inspector panel. Let's switch this over to pixels just temporarily. We'll see that the width is 658 pixels. We'll switch it back to percentages, and then now we're going to come over to minimum width, and let's say if it goes below 500 pixels, it's going to stop shrinking. So now when we resize, you're going to see it's getting smaller. Then once it hits 500 pixels in width, it's going to stop shrinking. This is a really good example when you have something like this, when you don't want, your text to look ugly once it shrinks down too much. So we just set a minimum width to this container. And now when we shrink down the website, you're going to see it shrinks down, but then once it hits a certain point, it's going to stop shrinking. That way your text still looks really nice inside of that box. But that's basically going to wrap it up for the video today. If you did learn something, please press that subscribe button and consider liking the video to help out the channel. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you all in the next one.